Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a truly fascinating green paradox that's unfolding right now. When we think of countries leading the charge in renewable energy and green transportation, it's usually certain European nations that come to mind, right? But nestled way up in the Himalayas, Nepal is quietly undergoing this astonishing energy transition. They're rapidly electrifying their roads and taking these massive leaps toward a zero-emission future. However, as we're about to uncover, this incredible environmental success story is bringing a massive, hidden challenge right along with it. We're looking at a looming e-waste crisis that could actually threaten the very environment this whole transition is trying to protect. Okay, let's dive into this because the numbers here are absolutely staggering. An astonishing 76% of all new car sales in Nepal are currently fully battery-powered. Just think about that for a second. More than 3 out of every 4 new cars hitting the roads in Nepal are electric. To put that into perspective, this makes Nepal second only to Norway globally in terms of electric vehicle market share for new sales. In just the first 11 months of the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year alone, Nepal imported over 11,000 electric four-wheelers. That's a massive 158% increase compared to the previous year. We're talking about an EV boom of epic proportions.
But how exactly did a developing nation achieve this lightning-fast transition? Well, it wasn't by accident. It was completely by design. The Nepalese government strategically engineered this EV boom through some massive tax incentives. If you want to import a traditional gas-guzzling internal combustion engine vehicle into Nepal, you could be hit with import taxes as high as 238%. But if you import an EV, that tax drops all the way down to around 10%. Add in lower excise taxes, reduced registration fees, and a huge national push to utilize the country's abundant surplus of hydropower, and the economic choice for consumers becomes a complete no-brainer. They are actively choosing electricity over imported petroleum.
Section 1. The Hidden Twist, a Looming Crisis. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're dealing with. Every action has a reaction, and this rapid adoption of green technology has a serious hidden twist. The deep irony of this remarkable green success story is that it's inadvertently setting the stage for a massive environmental hazard. The very vehicles meant to save the environment are bringing in tons of complex, hazardous materials that the country currently has absolutely no formal way to handle. The volume of general electronic waste is just skyrocketing. Back in 2013, Nepal generated about 15,000 tons of e-waste. By 2023, that number had surged to an estimated 42,000 tons. That is a rapid 18% annual growth rate. And keep in mind, this includes everyday items, mobile phones, laptops, and the millions of new e-cooking appliances being distributed for their clean cooking initiatives. The pile of discarded electronics is literally growing larger every single day. Now let's connect this broader e-waste issue directly back to our EV boom. People are pretty used to tossing out small laptop or mobile phone batteries, right? But as Pankaj Panjir from Doko Recyclers points out, an electric vehicle is a totally different beast. We are talking about up to 500 kilograms of waste for just one single car. The data suggests that Nepal is on track to generate 3,500 tons of lithium battery waste annually after 2027. And with the current accelerating EV market, that actual figure is likely going to be much, much bigger. Without a system in place, the sheer volume is going to rapidly spiral completely beyond control.
Section 2. The informal threat.
So how is Nepal currently handling this dangerous influx of heavy metals? Because we are talking about highly reactive materials here. Lithium, cobalt, nickel, and manganese. Stuff that comes with an immense ecological cost. Well, the shocking reality is that over 95% of e-waste in Nepal is managed by the informal sector. These are scrap dealers and hawkers operating completely without safety equipment or environmental regulations. Their methods are crude and, frankly, highly toxic. They basically cherry-pick the easily accessible valuable metals like copper or aluminum. Then, they simply dump the highly toxic liquid waste like battery acid straight into landfills or open spaces. From there, it slowly leaches into the soil and poisons the groundwater. And the leftover plastic casings? They're often just thrown into open-air fires, releasing hazardous, cancer-causing chemicals right into the air we breathe.
Section 3. The missing link. Policy void.
So you're probably asking yourself, why don't proper state-of-the-art recycling facilities exist in Nepal yet? I mean, if there's all this valuable material sitting in these batteries, shouldn't companies be rushing in to recycle them? The technology totally exists. It's essentially textbook engineering at this point. So the crucial point is, the missing link isn't the technology. It's a policy framework known as Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR.
This is a policy approach used globally, where the manufacturers and distributors of a product are legally and financially responsible for what happens to that product at the end of its life. But right now, Nepal does not have a mandated EPR policy for e-waste. Because this law doesn't exist, the brands manufacturing and importing these thousands of EVs aren't paying a single dime for the waste their products eventually generate.
Let me share a perfect, real-world example of how this policy void actively prevents solutions. Doker Recyclers, a local waste management company, actually managed to secure a massive 40 million rupee investment from a Singapore-based company to build a proper lithium-ion battery recycling infrastructure. Sounds great, right? But at the very last minute, the investor pulled out. Why? Because without a government-backed EPR policy, there was simply no guaranteed supply chain of batteries and no way to assure a return on their investment. The money just vanished, and the recycling plant was never built, all because the policy wasn't there to support the market.
Section 4. The Path Forward, True Sustainability.
Now, what's really interesting about the slide is that it shows the path forward is actually incredibly promising. If Nepal can align its legislation and enact these EPR policies, this impending crisis can literally be transformed into a massive economic and environmental win. The techno-economic viability of solving this locally is huge. Researchers have modeled a proposed direct recycling plant tailored specifically for Nepal. The capital cost would be roughly $6.6 million. It could process 5,000 tons of battery waste a year, which is more than enough to handle the incoming wave. Because the recovered materials like lithium and cobalt are so incredibly valuable, this plant would have a rapid payback period of just 3 years. Furthermore, it utilizes direct recycling, which research shows is the most cost-effective and environmentally sustainable method available, actively preventing the need to mine for new virgin material.
And the environmental impact of a facility like this, it would be absolutely staggering. By recycling these batteries locally and avoiding the highly carbon-intensive process of mining new lithium and heavy metals, this single proposed plant with a 5,000-ton capacity would reduce CO2 emissions by an incredible 75,000 tons every single year. It proves that the engineering and the economics are completely ready to go. The private sector is willing to invest. A solution is entirely possible and well within reach. Literally, all that is required is the legislative framework to connect the dots.
Which leaves us with this final, really critical thought to consider. We all love the idea of zero-emission vehicles driving silently through the Himalayas, powered by clean hydropower. But is a green transition truly clean if we can't manage the toxic waste it leaves behind? Nepal's EV boom is an absolute triumph of forward-thinking energy policy for sure. But to make it a true success, we have to look beyond the tailpipe. We've got to consider the entire life cycle of our eco-friendly choices. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a whole new perspective on what a truly sustainable future requires.